The China Nexus, launched here in London tonight with Lord Alton, Benedict Rogers, Rahima Mumad, and a number of other activists and people who could speak well on the China issue of human rights abuse. It's been a fantastic night. We had over 150 people join us to talk about the issues, to hear from people who have been there firsthand, who understand the oppression and how the Chinese Communist Party has suppressed their voices and ultimately, in some cases, created an untenable situation for living. Genocide against the Uyghurs, forced internment, rape, people from Hong Kong beaten, disappeared, ultimately murdered, for speaking for democracy and for the values that Canadians, Britons, Americans, and anybody in the Western world and the free world admires and wants to have. These people want the same thing. The Chinese Communist Party is denying all of these dissidents. They're not dissidents, they're human rights activists. They are people who want freedom, democracy, and they want the ability to have a free voice. And they want to live a life in peace and harmony and be able to practice their own religion and their own beliefs. That is what the Chinese Communist Party takes away from each of these groups within China and their impact around the world.
So I think this is a very important book because it brings together the experience of somebody who's been campaigning for human rights in China consistently over a long period and shows how the tentacles of the Chinese Communist Party affect people not just in China but particularly on its periphery in the Hong Kong, in Tibet, in Xinjiang. To bring all that together in one book is a very valuable exercise. And of course it also looks at the tentacles of the Chinese Communist Party elsewhere in Asia. So, you know, to have all that in one place is really very useful.
Obviously it is a very unique book that put the stories of the people persecuted under the CCP together. So the Uyghurs, the Tibetans, the Hong Kongers, and Chinese dissidents. So the Uyghur part included, for example, the history and real life stories, and also not just talking about the current situation, but also the history of persecution under the CCP since the Chinese Communist Party became the power of East Turkestan, or the so-called Xinjiang. So the book is very easy to read, and it really gives important information about the character of the CCP and the atrocities that the peoples are suffering under. So I think that is the I can say about the book. Yeah.
I think Benedict Rogers' book, The China Nexus, is an incredibly important work. It details a range of human rights abuses, whether it is the genocide against the Uyghur people, the oppression of people in Hong Kong, or the threats against Taiwan. And it's from a very personal perspective as well, which adds a great deal of color and interest to the read. So I highly recommend it, and I think that it's going to be a very important work in bringing these causes to public attention.
I'm very excited to get my hands on the China Nexus. I've been familiar with Ben's work for a long time. He's been such a passionate and dedicated champion for the rights for Chinese people of all different areas, and so I'm proud of him for this, and I'm very much looking forward to to a rather thorough overview of all of the human rights concerns in China.
Thank you for listening, and please join our cause. Go to www.ChinaNexusBook.com and purchase your copy of The China Nexus by Benedict Rogers. 30 years in and around the Chinese Communist Party's tyranny. Thank you.